Hey Kev, let's follow this trail over here. This looks like there might be something waiting down there.
All right. Hey, wait a minute. Do you hear that?
Yeah, I thought it was just me. What the heck is that?
I don't know what that is. Whoa, do you smell that too?
That's unbelievable. Hey, look.
What the?
Hey, look, those branches are moving over there.
What the heck is that?
Holy cow, is that what I think it is? Look at that thing.
Oh my God.
It's a freaking Sasquatch. Welcome to the Bigfoot Terror in the Woods Sightings and Encounters podcast. I am your host, W.J. Sheehan, author of the series of books Bigfoot Terror in the Woods Sightings and Encounters. 12 volumes in paperback, ebook, and audible format. And the Northeast book is also available in paperback, ebook, and audiobook. And may I have the Royal Trumpeters, please? Excellent trumpeting. The Southeast book is now out in paperback and ebook. The audio book will be coming down the road. But plenty of literature to be had for all. And now, may I introduce you to my brother and co-host, KJ Sheehan, the Royal Trumpeter.
Part-time Royal Trumpeter.
You can tell by the tone of your trumpet.
Well, it's hard to keep those royal trumpeting lips tight. That was one of those like 8-foot long trumpets,
right,
with the flag, or I should say the banner hanging below it. And with the Bigfoot on the banner, of course.
And the exceedingly narrow mouthpiece.
Exactly. And I used to play those horns in the Swiss Alps, where the bell of the horn actually rests on the ground about 12 feet away.
Indeed. I'd like to blast one of those, but I just don't have one. I don't understand why I don't have one.
I know. You'd think they'd be at all the yard sales up there in Long Island. I can't figure.
What do they call that horn?
The yodeling accompaniment.
Horn.
Swiss Miss.
Unbelievable. Well, I think most people on the East Coast are enjoying a nice spell of fantastic weather here after we got bombed with that rainstorm last week. And so I'm just enjoying it immensely. And here we are doing a podcast, so it's fantastic.
Yeah, it's all good. We have some beautiful fall-like low humidity temperatures here in North Carolina. Mm-hmm. But we do know it's just a tease, and it may be 100 degrees next week. You just never know what's coming.
Well, yeah, I don't like when people rush to summer. Like, already you got people, summer's almost over. 3 weeks ago, they were saying summer's almost over.
Oh, you mean rush to fall, or rush summer to be over?
Yeah. I used to work with a woman, and for quite a few years. And every year, didn't matter what time of year, she was a complainer. And it would be, we had no fall, we had no winter, we had no summer, we had no spring. And I would tell her, like, Anne-Marie, I don't know what planet you're on, but I participated in all 4 of those seasons. And
by the way, for more than a day each.
Yeah, and It seems to me like you're living on the same island I am. Where were you? But some people
She spends a lot of time indoors.
Yeah, with the blinds shut and a candle lit.
A candle that doesn't smell like a season.
Yeah. It's plain beeswax.
Beeswax, that's it. Unscented.
So as not to pollute.
From a non-seasonal bee.
If you're a non-seasonal bee, do you have like special striping?
I think so.
You know.
We don't see them too often. We have the seasonal bees.
That's so stupid. But I like stupid. Kev, what do we have in our Cryptids in the News and Other Oddities segment today?
Well, this week we're definitely going to cryptids and the freaky deaky.
Oh, cryptids and the freaky deaky.
Yeah, it's a freaky deaky cryptid.
Okay.
So some of our listeners from down in Australia wrote in to ask about this one.
Okay.
And I hadn't heard of it before, and there's quite a lot about it written out there, but the descriptions of it are wildly inconsistent.
Huh.
So we're going to open up with perhaps the wildest description that I could find.
Okay. Are these like spanning a large swath of time, or are they recent?
They start out a long time ago. So this description, they say, is the first written description of the cryptid that's called the bunyip.
Bunyip.
Or bunyip. It's Bunyip.
Weird, huh?
Yeah, weird name. Comes from Aboriginal name, which we're going to get into the name in a minute. But first, let me tell you about the description. So this is from 1845.
Okay. Now, I just looked up very quickly, Kev, if I can interject, the word bunyip. And the Aboriginal interpretation is a large woman with buck teeth.
That is not correct.
It's not? I mean, have I been misled?
You have been misled.
Oh, man. Again.
The Aboriginal word actually means like evil spirit or something like that.
Well, it's the same thing, isn't it?
No. All right. Are you ready for this freaky deaky description?
I'm ready.
All right. 1845. The creature laid pale blue eggs of immense size. So it's an egg-laying beast.
Okay.
Possessed deadly claws, powerful hind legs, a brightly colored chest, and get this, an emu-like head.
An emu-like head.
Yeah, and it says characteristics shared with the Australian cassowary.
Huh.
And it says, as the creature's bill was described as having serrated projections like the bone of the stingray, the bunyip was associated with the indigenous people of far north Queensland, renowned for their spears tipped with stingray barbs and their proximity to the cassowary's Australian range. So, you know, these indigenous people, they knew what the cassowary was, and they, were not calling this a cassowary. They're calling it a bunyip.
So they saw something that had some similar characteristics to the cassowary, and
but definitely a weird thing.
Now you see, obviously we weren't there. But, to me, again, where there's smoke, there's fire. And, these people out there that share these tales initially with, people who aren't from their parts, like, quote, civilized people, why even mention it? It's like when they go up in the Himalayas and whatnot looking for the abominable snowman, and they meet these villagers, and the guy lives on a terraced hillside. He's got a couple of yak, and he's talking to them about this creature. The guy doesn't have an axe to grind. I kind of just think if these indigenous people out there in the Australia outback are talking about it, and something that we know as being real, as the cassowary, at the same time, what's to gain?
There's nothing to gain.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a long, long time ago. We'll go back a little bit further here.
Okay.
So the word bunyip first appeared in the Sydney Gazette, so the newspaper of Sydney, Australia, in 1812. And someone named James Ives described a large black animal like a seal with a terrible voice which creates terror among the people.
A body like a seal.
Yeah. And they knew what a seal was.
Yeah, of course.
So that's interesting, right?
A terrible
1812.
A terrible voice.
Yeah.
So some type of shrieking, screaming, something that just makes your hair stand up, I'm thinking of.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep. Pretty crazy.
And the other description, though, with talon-like claws and serrated projections like the stingray's barb, and it's very detailed and odd for sure, but you either got a really good imagination and you're telling a yarn, or you've seen something very unusual.
Yeah, and they talk about the creature too as being amphibious, so it's definitely found around lagoons, swamps, rivers, waterholes, so like fresh water, right? Mm-hmm. And it's it has been seen on land, but it's definitely a water beast.
Okay.
You know what I mean? You're not going to see it walking around in the forest.
So some type of amphibian, maybe.
Yep, exactly.
Wow. Really bizarre. Now, you've been in Australia many times, Kev. I know zero about the landscape over there, other than that most of the people live on the coast. But is there a lot of water inland in that continent?
There is water inland. It ranges from lush, green mountains to, arid deserts. But it's a big continent.
Oh, yeah.
It's like the United States.
Yeah, it's huge. It's huge.
Bigger than the United States.
And the population is really minimalistic compared to the amount of real estate,
Well, yeah, and you hit the nail on the head, too. It is almost exclusively around the coast.
Yeah. And, Kev, it's the same thing we talk about many times. We've talked about many times in the past in North America. The places where people live are generally coastal or near some water. We like water, right? We like the transportation. We like pretty much everything about the water except when it floods us.
Yeah, it's generally how you got to a place is from the water.
Right, and then made a home, and then you had other people who could come and go knowing you lived. Like we could access this through a sailing vessel. And then come visit these people. We know where they are.
Yeah, and then you got in your horse and wagon eventually and went to Wyoming.
Yeah, and, but if you do a flyover of the United States or Canada at any time, it's basically desolate wilderness.
It's largely unpopulated.
Right.
I mean, I fly over the country all the time. I'll be flying to Denver tomorrow night. And it's like, you look out the window and you're like, wow, just like nothing down there.
Yeah, except a bunch of Bigfoot.
And a few black-eyed children.
So let's get back to a bunyip.
Bunyip. Yeah, so I lost track of what I was talking about.
Well, you were talking about the oldest story going back further than 1812, was it?
Oh, yeah. So there's a good description here, too, about the scale. Again, I promised wildly disparate descriptions of the beast. Mm-hmm. So there was an outline image of the bunyip carved by the Aboriginal people on the bank of Fiery Creek near Ararat, Victoria. And it was recorded by the Australasian newspaper in 1851.
Wow.
And according to the report, the bunyip had been speared after killing an Aboriginal man.
Wow.
Yeah. And a gentleman by the name of Raynell Johns claimed that until the mid-1850s, Aboriginal people made a habit of visiting the place and retracing the outlines of the figure of the bunyip, which was about 11 paces long and 4 paces wide.
Wow.
Yeah, so huge, right?
Yeah.
And they say that the outline of the image no longer exists in that part of the country. It probably got washed away.
And here we have, obviously there's people going back in memorial of the person who was killed.
Yeah.
It's like a ritualistic thing at this point.
Yep.
And they're retracing and meditating, whatever they're doing at that site, but they're basically mourning for the dead and remembering what happened that day,
Yep.
Very bizarre.
And it's almost like it's two different creatures. So I'm going to tell you here about the folks that really try to categorize the sightings, okay?
Okay.
They say that most commonly the sightings and descriptions fit one of two categories. So 60% of the sightings resemble seals or swimming dogs. And I've seen an image of one with like a head, almost like a Labrador Retriever.
Okay.
So that's the swimming dog. I shouldn't say an image. It's like a sketch of one.
Almost like a giant walrus.
Yeah, with no tusks. Mm-hmm. Hang on, I'm gonna sneeze. I think.
Go ahead.
Sneeze alert.
And the. You took the words out of my mouth when you said two things, because the initial description almost sounded like some type of crazy type of raptor with the hind legs and, these jagged projections and a jaw and a bright belly, which could have just been light coloring against a darker overall body coloring. But then we get into this thing... 4 paces wide and 11 paces long. That's like a big rectangle of flesh.
Yeah.
Not describing any appendages or anything.
No, it sounds a little bit like, it could sound like Loch Ness Monster or something like that.
Yeah, yeah, something.
And that's where we get a little further here.
Okay.
So, the balance of so you have 60% resembling seals or swimming dogs. The balance of the sightings are long-necked creatures with small heads. So that's that emu-like head from the previous description. They say that the long-necked variety is allegedly between 5 and 15 feet long and is said to have black or brown fur, large ears, small tusks, and a head like a horse or emu.
Really
and
weird.
the long neck is maned and has many folds of skin, and it has a horse-like tail.
But that is
I told you, freaky deaky.
That is a weird bugger, man.
Weird bugger.
I'm plugging in the pieces as you're describing them in my mind visually.
You got a little artist rendering?
Yeah,
there?
I got it going on in my head.
Looks like you had some LSD before you started drawing.
Yeah. No, actually, I was eating Special K's with strawberries in them.
Oh, okay.
They could have the same effect.
And some wild mushrooms.
They could have the same effect. Excuse me. Wow, that is crazy, man.
Yeah, and it's interesting. So during the early settlement of Australia by the Europeans, so that was like in 1840s and 1850s, there was a very large number of sightings that were reported, particularly in the southeastern colonies of Australia, Victoria, New South Wales, and South Australia.
So there was like an influx of sightings.
Well, an influx because you had all of these Europeans show up there.
Yeah, but why? Again, they're moving in. They don't know anything about the area. Everything's kind of weird to them, new place, new people, new surroundings. And all of a sudden they're freaked out by seeing something that they're not familiar with over in Europe where they came from.
Yep.
So there's something to be said about that. How much illegitimacy can there be over such a vast time frame with different groups of people?
Oh yeah, I don't think it's illegitimate.
Yeah. Something.
I do think it's weird, though.
Yeah, definitely weird and something going on there,
Yep.
My friend said that when they used to show up, interview people at the scenes of carnage, bad accidents where many people were killed or injured. Amazing the variety of descriptions from eyewitnesses of the same event.
Yep.
And they're all well-meaning. They're all, obviously, trying to talk about what happened, what they saw, and they're very outspoken and energetic. And yet the stories are vastly different. And all these people basically saw the same thing.
Yep.
So that's a kind of an odd thing, isn't it? Like you're certain what you saw, but I'm also certain of what I saw, and it's a little different than what you did. It's kind of odd,
Yeah, absolutely.
But I would imagine the same thing as going on through the years with this bunyip. And if it is two different creatures and people are misnaming it, that the stories kind of get mixed and matched,
Yeah, I mean, who knows? I mean, a lot of the stuff that I cover when I find some of these cryptids and that the descriptions are pretty similar, and then you're left trying to figure out, okay, real, fake, when did this happen? What was it? What happened to this creature? Mm-hmm. If it's some other species and stuff. In this one, it's like, wow, so many different descriptions of it.
Yeah, you remember that statue that was erected on that coastline when we were talking about that one cryptid.
Oh, is this the one in the sea?
Yeah.
Yes. And, fantastic. Yeah.
Fantasy, perhaps. Real, perhaps. We're in that middle ground. We don't know. We weren't there.
I lean towards the real with the creatures that come out of the sea, just because the sea is so undiscovered.
Yeah.
It's so huge and deep and vast that we don't know what's there until we see it. And then we're like, whoa, we thought that was extinct.
Yeah.
But it's not.
Well, I have that feeling about the megalodon.
Yeah.
Because originally they were saying the experts were saying this thing had died off, let's just say millions of years ago or a million years ago. But then I think they did a carbon dating on some of the teeth or a tooth and said it was 10,000 years old. And 10,000 years in our time frame is like a drop in the bucket. But who's to say in the oceans that there still aren't an amount of these large creatures out there,
No, exactly.
So very elusive. You're not going to see them frequently.
Yep.
They're under the surface. They're concealed by the water, the reflections, the coloration, someone being there to see them. And then when that person is there to see them, they're looked at like, yeah, okay, pal. And that's the way it goes, It's like human nature amongst the masses to doubt and then disparage the people who tell you what they thought, which is exactly why people shun away from telling about what they've seen, whether it's a bunyip, a Sasquatch, Nessie, whatever it may be. People don't want to be thought of as being W.J. Sheehan, and they turn away from those things. I mean, you don't want to be known as being me, do you?
No.
Exactly. So very few people do. Hey, here's that guy. He's the guy that writes about Bigfoot. Well, watch that guy. He's a little weird.
It's that Bigfoot guy.
Hey, you look like a bunyip. Wow. Very cool. Well, is that a wrap on the bunyip?
That's a wrap, Bill. So what do you got as an account this week?
I got something really interesting here. And may I re-up that many of the accounts that I bring forth, I believe to be genuine, and that's why I have them. Even though, in some cases, a Bigfoot didn't come out of the shrubs and, growl at somebody or lunge at them or whatever the case may be. And let's get into this one here. This bizarre encounter was shared with me by a fellow named Tony Bastianich, a veteran of our armed services. Unfortunately, Tony could not share many details regarding the claims he made, but I felt it worthy of exposure for whatever it may be worth. So this is what Tony had to say. Believe it or not. As I begin, Bill, I am not a Bigfooter. Not now, not then, and not ever. I will say that since the days of the mission, which I will endeavor to tell you about, I do have an interest in these beasts in that I follow a good deal of what's said about them, which is how we have come to be acquaintances, having heard you speak and read some of your books. This whole affair in the military is very secretive, but believe me when I tell you that they are both aware and involved regarding their existence and, in some cases, their disposal. The first time I became aware of them was during survival training, brought to the group's attention as a dangerous animal. Not a fake or some fairy tale, but a legitimate threat to human life in the forest. There are no games played in survival training and no joke sessions. If there is a threat to you, be it snakes, bears, poisonous plants, sharks, etc., it is made known and discussed at length. Such was the case with Sasquatch, the name they had given during the meetings. Many eyebrows were raised in the room when this creature came into play, including my own. Frankly, I couldn't believe what I was hearing, and yet, because of everything that had brought me to this point in service, I knew in my heart it had to be true. They had been apparently encountered by both civilian and military personnel, with the resulting contacts not necessarily ending well. No details were given regarding what the ending had been post-contact, and I felt we were being taken down the rabbit hole that death had occurred. In other words, humans were killed by the Sasquatch. I will not tell you what branch of the services I was involved in, nor will I give you years, dates, or any other pertinent information regarding what happened. I am simply sharing the events because of your interest in the subject. During our training, I didn't see a bear, let alone a Sasquatch, but seeds had been planted as to their existence in my mind, which would come into play sometime later, as you are about to hear. In the military and particular branches of the specialized forces, we regularly play out war games and engagement scenarios, preparing ourselves for what may be inevitable. I had been involved in such practices in the mountains, on the coasts, in the forests, and other locations when the day had arrived that I was about to get into with you. Our group was ordered to a location in the northernmost part of the United States. Nothing was mentioned prior about what we would be doing, only that a briefing would be given upon our arrival. When we entered the briefing hall, photographs were attached to a bulletin board, and a projection system had been set up at the front of the room. The pictures were of some mangled human bodies and some long-distance shots of what were Sasquatch creatures, all of which would eventually be seen via projection. Before anything was discussed, we were told that this was a live mission to seek and destroy a threat in the region. A threat which turned out to be Sasquatch. If you think this is all a bit too much to hear about, you should have been there to see the collective looks projected throughout the room when we were told. A few days later, we were airlifted by helicopters into a zone near the northern border and instructed that we could cross borders to the north if need be in pursuit. Another crazy aspect of this mission was the type of arms issued. We were carrying enough firepower to take on a mechanized unit. At any rate, this zone that we were going to scour on foot was touted to be where these Sasquatch lived or migrated through, our mission being to kill. For 2 weeks on foot and quads, including some light air support in the form of one chopper, we looked under every stone and came up empty. I'm talking night vision, in the air and on the ground, infrared, all the bells and whistles you can imagine, and nothing. 0 tracks. No apparent dens or habitations were found, and nothing was picked up on thermal imaging besides regional animals. The only thing of note was some large twisted branches in several areas, high off the ground, some 10 to 12 feet. These were thick, fresh tree limbs measuring between 3 to 6 inches in diameter, something compelling having done the twisting for damn sure. As the mission ground to a halt, we didn't hear any of the so-called howls, tree knocks that people speak of today. I served for another year and a half, unaware of any further missions ordered. My thoughts in retrospect are these. When shown the pictures of reported victims, these people were torn apart in the most gruesome fashion. It's hard to look at. I had to presume at the time that some preliminary scientific investigation had to have been launched to rule out other types of predators that may have been the culprits. In my wildest imagination, I could never have imagined this scenario I had a part in, hunting down Sasquatch in North America. I am interested in them now, as you know, but I would advise everyone to afford these beasts plenty of space. I would not want to be on the receiving end of what my eyes had seen in the photographs. They can not only kill, but will kill. And under what circumstances is anyone's guess. Were these attacks provoked, random, or anything else? I don't know. But they happened. Guys in the service talk, and I haven't heard a thing relative to any other maneuvers performed in the region, which doesn't by any means indicate that they are not and could not be ongoing, even as we speak. Well, how's that, Kev, for a coming to Jesus moment?
Pretty cool.
Pretty bizarre,
Yeah, always good to hear from the veterans, too.
Yeah, he claims they were, briefed, talk, photos, taken, moved, investigated, come up dry, except for some twisted branches that were odd, and no further involvement after the fact. Kind of weird, huh?
Yeah.
Armed, like you go... Well, if you're on any kind of maneuvers, you're armed, even if everybody's just carrying rifles and a sidearm or something, But, infrared, night vision, backup helicopter, hiking, scanning, looking, scouring the landscape. I mean, and again, how many guys? Don't know. Probably some patrol. And, considering the vastness of the wilderness that we're just talking about, how much ground are you actually going to physically put boots on?
Exactly.
But you got a chopper flying with infrared, looking around whatever area they would cover, scanning for, hot signatures. And I just find it to be weird. It's an oddity.
Yeah.
that such things are going on. And others have claimed that such things are going on, you know. So I remember on Les Straub's Bigfoot series, he met up with that fellow up in, I think it was Alberta. And this guy brought him into an area where he said he had regular encounters. And do you recall, Kev, he said the guy was talking to Les, and if I fudge it, don't mind me, but I'm going to get you in the neighborhood of what was said. I think they were around he said he was had a fire made one night, and I believe in the area where he had made the fire, he had found boot tracks, numerous boot tracks, and the kind of boots like army men wear. And on one night, he heard a ton of machine gun fire, rapid fire, while he was at this fire in the distance from where he was. And then he heard a helicopter come in, couldn't see it. I think he said it was close enough where he felt he should have seen it, but if it was blacked out. And the helicopter was going in the direction of where all of this crazy gunfire had come from. So the opinion was, you were led to believe that they were hunting Sasquatch and the chopper came in to retrieve the bodies. So, I mean, all of that is very bizarre, and we weren't there, and it's just one grandiose fairy tale at this point, you know.
Yeah, very strange.
Yeah, just, and like talking about the bunyip or anything else, you know.
Yeah.
I haven't seen a bunyip. I haven't seen a Sasquatch personally, you know, but I've seen some pictures. I've interviewed some people. I've seen some damn good video clips in recent years that lead me to believe, as the Patty film did so many years ago, that this creature is alive and well. Isn't that interesting, huh, Kim?
Very interesting. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So there you have it. Bunyip, Sasquatch investigation somewhere up in the northeast or northwest. And on we go with our investigation of the strange.
Yeah, very strange stuff. Mm-hmm. Good stuff, though. Good account. Mm-hmm. All right, let's go to listener mail.
Yeah.
Shall we?
Yes, we shall.
So our first email comes in from Matthew. And he says, the subject is, what are the odds? Very strange. The Delta discovery. He writes, this evening...
Say that again. Read what he said.
He said, what are the odds? Very strange. The Delta discovery.
The Delta discovery. Okay, yeah. Go ahead.
It'll make sense in a minute,
yeah.
I think. So this evening, Sunday, June 15th of 2024, I was updating my Facebook group, Cryptozoology and You, and I posted an article from the Delta Discovery about berry pickers spying a Bigfoot. I then, after posting the article, a few minutes later, turned on your podcast. I was shocked when KJ said, I have this week a good encounter from the Delta Discovery about a Bigfoot encounter in Alaska. Kevin then proceeds to talk about the article that I just posted. What are the odds? Wow, I was shocked. I've been getting Bigfoot articles from the Delta Discovery for years. What are the odds? So strange. In any case, I enjoy weekly listening to the podcast. I did want to ask you if you all have seen Sasquatch Sunset. And if so, what did you think of it?
Sasquatch Sunset?
Yeah, I thought you might know what he's talking about. I have no idea what he's talking about.
Well, that makes two of us.
All right.
But
yeah, pretty cool. So Matthew came across the same article that I came across on this Delta Discovery website up in Alaska, up in rural Alaska, where people share their Sasquatch and Bigfoot sightings. Mm-hmm. And he saw it and posted it. And on the same day, he turns on our podcast, and I was talking about it. So, Matthew, great minds think alike.
That's that old synchronicity kicking in.
Exactly.
Boy, that's strange, man. The Sasquatch sunset.
Yeah, we got to look into that. Matthew, maybe send us another note and tell us what you mean by the Sasquatch sunset.
Yeah, and by the way, folks, if you're like Matthew or anybody else, you have something to say, go to BigfootTerrorInTheWoods.com. Just hit the contact button. Send us a message. If you want to talk, leave a number. And we'll hook up,
Yeah.
Interesting.
Good stuff.
Yep.
All right. And our next email, let's see here. I think we'll probably wrap up with this one. Comes from Dave. And the subject is what I heard in the woods in the middle of the 1990s. I believe it was a Bigfoot, and it occurred off Highway 89. All right. And the message is, in the middle of the 1990s, I and a friend were on a trip to Nevada off Highway I-5 by Mount Shasta on Highway 89.
Okay.
We stopped off 89 to do some target practice deep in the woods. What we heard scared the bejesus out of us. And he says, I can tell you more about this if you want to reach out to me. And he gives his phone number. He says he's a retired professional wrestler. And at the time, he was active as a professional wrestler. And he's also been a professional bodyguard. He says, I've never told this story to any other media outlet, and I won't ever embellish this true story or anything else in my life. My friend that was with me died in a boating accident in the Columbia River near Portland, Oregon. We were in the accident together. He drowned. I was rescued by a Coast Guard helicopter 18 hours later.
Wow.
I was in the hospital for 3 days with hypothermia.
Oh, my God. I can't imagine.
Dave, what a tragedy. I'm glad that you made it through it, and thank God for the Coast Guard, some of the bravest people on Earth, pulling you out of that ice-cold Pacific Northwest water.
My God, Kevin, we've talked before about the hazards of the Columbia River.
Oh, yeah.
What a freaking... That place is like a death trap.
Yeah.
And people are going through there every day of the week. Big ships. And still that...
and it's one of the most popular windsurfing, kite surfing places on Earth, too.
No kidding. I would imagine, I can understand why, because it's just like out of control.
Super windy. But, meanwhile, you got these barges and everything coming down the river and a lot of current,
Yeah.
It's a wild place. But,
Wow.
But definitely, Dave, my brother will try to get in touch with you because it sounds like a pretty interesting account that you want to share. And also, you sound like a credible source.
Yeah, and folks, don't take it personal. I am like ridiculously busy. And, I write numbers down. My intention is good. I call some people. I say to myself, I'll call this other guy tomorrow or try back. But if you don't hear from me, send your number out again. Don't be shy, because I'm telling you up front, I am like really busy. And between work and getting out this new series, this 7-book series, doing more proofing of my editor, and you just can't believe there's a lot of stuff going on. So don't take it personal, like I forgot about you, this, that, or the other thing. Just reach out again, and we'll get together, okay? So is that it, Kev, for the mail?
That's it.
So remember, folks, if you should find yourself walking around the Australian outback, the Pacific Northwest, the Northeast, the Southeast, wherever, you best remember one thing, my friends. always carry more gun than you think you're going to need. Sleep tight.